as opposed to the two-hand touch, I would have tackled him. You'll not find out, can you really tackle him?
Signed inside linebacker Quan Alexander.
After the pass on my hit.
Like, you can't wait for pads.
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited.
Once these pads come on, the truth will be told. You'll see a rapid increase in the physicality.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Training Camp Live, presented by FedEx. You are looking live at Chuck Noll Field. It is like Christmas morning here at Training Camp 2023. The pads are officially on. Hi, everybody. I'm Missi Matthews, joined by Max Starks. And everyone was excited when training camp started, but this just ups the ante even more.
This is the biggest moment you can have for training camp. There's no more acclimation. There's no more we got to walk through in just our shirts and our helmets. The pads will clap from this day forward as we present Training Camp Live, and I can't be more excited. This is the moment where you start to see the separation. Everything looks good when it's run-throughs and tag-off drills, but now you'll see physicality. Can a linebacker actually stop a running back in the hole? Can an offensive lineman actually beat a guy around the corner? All of those questions will be answered. Defensive backs, stalking drills against wide receivers. You're no longer just pushing a guy down and saying it's okay. Now you really have to focus on breaking the press and doing the different things that simulate more game time, game-like situations. So I'm ecstatic. We've been talking about it since we started this show this year, and now we are at that penultimate moment.
And so many times we've seen Coach Tomlin run back a play because there weren't officials here to make the call, and today officials are out on the field. So officially official as the pads go on. As you said, a lot of excitement, not just for the players, but the coaches too, when you get through an entire offseason of the OTAs, the mini camp, to get to this point. And it's crazy, Max, in 10 days, the first preseason game will kick off, which is nuts when you think about it.
Well, it absolutely is, but this is that next phase, right? We're looking at, okay, when you're looking at the calendar, we've gone through OTAs, we've gotten through mini camps. Those are all touch-offs, or what I like to call the underwear Olympics type practices. We had the acclimation period, which was 4 practices before the day off yesterday. Now it's really what I'm used to, the type of training camps that I'm used to when I was back here at Latrobe so many years ago. Now you get to physically go out and prove yourself. This is what it is, especially for the interior of your team, the offensive line and the defensive line. You can't generate power in these type of drills, but you could generate power today. We'll see O-line, D-line run blocking drills early on in practice before we get into some of the team periods. Then as we transition, we'll see some more physical one-on-one matchups, which I'm going to be very excited to see. I will be down on the field to watch those, to cheer for the offensive line, of course, and to boo the defensive line, just like the fans that are here today attending practice. But it's a different intensity level. You could tell this morning, even the coaches mentally walking around, a little more contemplative, a little more reflective, and more kind of reserved in their approach because they know what this is. This is where I'm going to figure out if my young guy can do it or he can't do it, or do we have to go back to the drawing board? A lot of things get revealed when pads come on.
And speaking of coaches, I had a chance to catch up with defensive coordinator Terrell about his first day in pads today as well.
So far, I think they're doing a good job communicating, making sure they're in the right spots as best you can right now without pads, and they're doing all the right things. And so it'll really come to fruition when we start putting on the pads. I think once the pads go on, it'll narrow it down, and once we get into game situations, it'll narrow it down even more. You know, everything that we do right now, Mike likes to call it football-like, and it really is because you're not tackling, you're not getting off of blocks. And now you actually got to get, those big guys, you get a chance to, on offense, they can lean on you. On defense, you can see which guys can really get off the block and make a tackle. And so that's really why I'm excited as a coach for pads to come on. It's fun.
Oh, and not too long ago, my co-host here, Max Starks, put on the pads. We were not able to find a photo from your rookie year, which made us so angry. I believe this is about 2013 or 14. So,
Yeah.
But you remember this well. 12,
Yeah,
I'm being told.
2012, yeah. No, that's funny. As I'm talking with Heath Miller there, if nobody can't tell the back of the head, I can tell Earl's head anywhere. That's one of my brothers. But, no, it's a fun time. I mean, a lot of people were nervous the night before pads, right? You know, guys are sitting there nervous in their rooms trying to flip through their notebook and everything. I was like, man, I can't wait. Finally. You know, it's like, please take the training wheels off. I'm ready to ride the bike. And that's what this day is, and it's a lot of joy. You know, I looked at a lot of guys, the offensive linemen. You know, I didn't go by and judge their plates, but, you know, a couple of them probably ate a little bit lighter, knowing that this is going to be an intensity level up. But it's a moment where you really get to, I feel, this is the start of really making the players on the field your teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to bond over the moments that now ensue because of all of these physical moments. And you start to grow as a unit on each side of the ball because you're rooting for that side at that moment. Like, I need the yellow shirts to beat the white shirts, and I need the white shirts to beat the yellow shirts. And you start to really see the sides of the ball start to really root and look at each other. And also, it brings a different level of intensity because you don't know if guys are a little bit worried, nervous, maybe they're timid, but you represent everybody on your side of the ball when you step up in a one-on-one situation, and that's where the team pride starts to take place, and you start to see some really good things happening.
There's a few guys that have been dealing with bumps and bruises, as we've reported on the show. DeMonte Casey is the only one from this vantage point I was able to see not in pads today. He's still dealing with that ankle injury. But you mentioned guys who might be nervous or excited. I would have to imagine a Calvin Austin III has to be excited to go out there and prove what he did last year, but then his season just completely ended before the preseason.
Yeah, and it ended around this time, right when we had just started, because we had saw him in the acclimation period doing so well. And actually, funny enough, DeMonte KZ made a name for himself in those matchups. So we were excited to get the pads on and see what would happen. But the problem is it never came to fruition. So I think for Calvin Austin III, he's coming out here and he's got a little extra hitch in his giddy up because he knows he wants to prove himself and go through this process and show people who he is.
All right, so in terms of the camp battles, as we see right now, players are warming up. Everyone's in pads. You see T.J. Watt there. We saw Kenny Pickett just a minute ago. They're going to do 7 shots, but then we know that backs on backers is going to come, which is just a staple in a Mike Tomlin training camp when the pads go on. And today's backs on backers, also including tight ends. So take us through what that drill looks like, who has the advantage, and what will that show the coaching staff?
So that drill, and just like a lot of drills, I mean, there's a defensive advantage to it, right? Because as an offensive player, you know, you're there, you're kind of at a flat-footed position, and you're kind of having to mirror dodge, you know, what that defender's doing. So the way it sets up, the running back will sit offset in where they think the quarterback should be, and there will be a bag there to represent him. Their job is to stay in a lane and try and prevent the defender from getting to that bag. Now, the problem is lanes get a little blurry when there's no bodies in front of to really, like, funnel them. So you'll see the linebackers kind of take some wider angles. They'll be a little bit, you know, left to right in their motions, which can throw a running back off. Because normally a running back, like, hey, you got the first thing off the tackle's hip. Well, there's no tackle hip to look at.
Right.
It's a proverbial hip. So that's one where the advantage is a little bit to the defense. But the willingness to go up there, want to block, want to hit somebody, that's what's really going to matter. And this is a drill a year ago. Jaylen Warren really popped on the scene. Like, we were watching him be a willing combatant. He was going up against Miles Jack. He was going up against a young Mark Robinson, and he was putting his face in the fan. And I think that's what you want to see with a lot of these young guys. Anthony McFarland, I know he's not a young guy, but a guy that's not been used as much. This is a chance for him to really step up and really say, hey, I want to take this other running back position because, let's face it, I think we can all say that Najee's number 1. He's RB1. Jaylen Warren's pretty safe and secure at RB2, but who's going to be RB3? And I think you have 2 new guys coming in today that we signed off the street with the injury to Alfonso Graham and then Monty Pottebaum retiring. So now we got Lovett and Bell coming in. So where do they fit in? They're hungry. They want to get out here like, hey, listen, my first day of practice is pads.
Right.
I want to hit somebody too. So Anthony McFarland's going to get a great shot, and I think against Mark Robinson, and probably I would think against like a Tanner Muse will probably be what he draws, and then Jalen Warren and Najee will probably get what I call the new holy trinity of inside backers with Quan Alexander, Cole Holcomb, and Landon Roberts.
And Quan Alexander, his first day was on Monday before on Sunday, before the off day on Monday, and you could tell he was hopeful and was wishing that his first day was in pads. He's coming hungry to this one. There you see him in gold there, number 26.
He's already doing his drills.
Right.
He's doing air drills.
He's amped up. You could just tell even on his first day here. But what about a Darnell Washington? Who do you need to see him go against? Somebody that we've just talked so much about since he's been drafted with the physicality, but not having him in pads, it's not like you were able to visualize what you thought it could be.
And the game looked a little fast for Darnell early on in practices as he got into like day 2 and 3. You could see he was kind of swimming on him a little bit as far as the play calls, responsibilities. But I really expect to see him probably against a Nick Herbig, one of his guys, because Nick Herbig's that second string. He looks to be doing a great job. I think those two will probably have some good battles, rookie-on-rookie action. And I think you'll probably see Darnell against a Marcus Golden as well. So it'll be a great time for him to really show himself and show what we've kind of been expecting, 6'7", 288. How do you do off the edge with these outside backers? Because you will be asked to block a defensive end or an outside backer one-on-one in some of the pass schemes that Matt Canada has. So how do you do against these guys? Zach Gentry as well, as he continues to grow as a blocker at a tight end position. But you know what else? I can't wait to see Connor Hayward come from the backfield and also off the wing as he takes on a bunch of different guys as well. So it's going to be really fun to watch. And I think the outside linebacker group, unlike a year ago, they have a lot more depth. There's a lot more guys coming here because I know we mentioned our top 4. We know is Watt, Highsmith, Golden, and Herbig. But a Quincy Roche is another guy that I want to see how he grows into this position. Can he be a guy that really makes that fourth linebacker, outside linebacker position, something as a more contested position? So it's going to be really interesting to see those tight ends and those outside backers early on. But Connor Hayward, the Meatball Express, right? He's going to get inside and outside backers.
Do you think that backs on backers is by far one of Mike Tomlin's favorite drills?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, when the head man comes down and he's there for the entire drill and you can't start that drill.
He's running it.
Until he gets there. And he's running it. He said, hey, 30, get in there. 55, get in there. And he wants to see. He's crafting these matchups. Nothing Mike Tomlin does is ever by accident. He has a plan in place and everything down to the minutia of who's going and who's ready to fire off in this drill is another type of I'd say a look into the detail that he handles, not outside, because, I mean, he plans the rooming list, he plans the practice schedule, and then he crafts this drill because he wants to see the willingness. He knows the intensity of both of those positions, and he wants to see them on full display.
All right, take us through what we're going to see from the O-line and the D-line in their first go at it today in pads.
So this is going to be a fun one because O-line and D-line early on in practice, I think right after 7 shots, they're going to do O-line, D-line run blocking drills, which that already gives you kind of a prelude to what the one-on-one pass rush is going to be. They're going to hit up.
Hey, you know that guy. There's Joey Porter.
I might know that guy. Joey Porter Sr.
I know.
Since we have a junior on the team, we have to make the differentiation now. But Peasy is here at practice, and he has his other sons here. They're here to watch their big brother do battle on his first day in pads. I mean, it's something you could have probably anticipated. Joey Porter here for a pads day with his son at his first training camp.
Loving some intensity. Yeah.
And he's going to be yelling. He's going to be yelling a lot. You're going to hear him up here where we're at if those drills start happening.
All right, sorry, going back to the O-line and D-line, take us through a little bit more of what you were saying there.
So they'll start out with the O-line, D-line run blocking drills. That one it's a drill to gain physicality, but it's almost always – I mean, offensive line is at a disadvantage, right, because there's no run play, there's no cutback where the defensive lineman has to run. It's the lineman picks a direction, and the D lineman just has to beat him to the point. So, obviously, D lineman faster than offensive lineman, not as smart, but they're faster athletically. And so they'll just have to react to what the offensive lineman does, and it's usually beating them to a point. You can't take them to the ground. Even though we are in pass, you won't take them to the ground, whereas in a normal game-like situation or when we get to Friday Night Lights, it'll be a full takedown type of drill. So that'll be the first thing. And then later on in practice, after a couple of team periods, we'll get the one-on-one pass rush, which is usually on the opposite side of the field. We have the road side and the baseball side is how we differentiate the fields. So the side closest to the scoreboard, that'll be where you see the running back, backs on backers drill. But O-line, D-line is always what we call the pit towards the baseball side of, of the field where you'll see one-on-one pass rush, and that's where we get to shine. That's the one where it's mano-a-mano. We have lanes drawn out in the grass, so you see the white lines. That's your path area. You can't differentiate from it. If you do, we're going to call you out for it. And Cam Hayward's also going to call out the D lineman for trying to run away from the drill. So that's what makes this a lot more fun. But that's where you get to see the physicality. You get to really punch, grab, twist, throw guys, and that's a fun drill where you really see where guys stand. So I'm going to be looking for Broderick Jones. I'm going to be looking for William Dunkel, Spencer Anderson, and also Dan Moore in year 3 here fighting for that job. Those are the guys I'm really focused on. I can't wait to see the Suamalu and Hayward match up because that's 2 vets that are savvy, strong, physical guys, how they match up in that as well. So it's going to be a fun drill where you linemen get to now utilize the power. This is where the power comes in. This is where the dancing bare feet, we call it, the Fred Astaire school of kick step comes in. So you get to see some power, some grace, and a lot of violence.
Do you think we'll see anything from T.J. Watt or any of those guys, maybe one here or there?
Oh, yeah. We're going to see that. I think Dan Moore will get Alex Highsmith early on, and I think we'll also get T.J. Watt against Chukes Okorafor. They'll get the kind of those ceremonial type of plays.
And then they're bystanders. They get to watch.
Then after that, they get to watch and teach and allow the young guys. Because Nick Herbig's really going to need some good reps. And I think he's going to get a lot of reps today. And also, Marcus Golden's been there, done that guy. But you're going to want to see him try and test Broderick Jones a lot in that position. So I think we'll still see some action from Marcus Golden. And then, of course, like I said, Quincy Roche will be another guy that will probably flip to both sides and do some pass rush on some of the young guys.
All right, we can't forget about the wide receivers and the DBs. We've seen Joey Porter Jr. and George Pickens already going at it before the pads came on. What do you anticipate from these 2 groups getting a chance to go at it?
Man, I think this is one of those, it's the China dolls busting heads, for all intents and purposes. They're not really going to bust heads, but this is the stalk drill. This is the stuff where you see in practice where a guy makes a long catch and it looks uncontested. Now it turns in a little bit different. There's some physicality. How is that wide receiver going to block the safety that's coming down, stalking on an outside run play? How do you position yourself to stop a Keon O'Neal, a Pat Peterson, or, for all intents and purposes, Elijah Riley, Chandon Sullivan, how those guys all fit into it because you don't have a Minka in this drill. Then, of course, for Joey Porter Jr., if you're in man press and ball's coming towards you, how do you shed the wide receiver? And as a wide receiver, how do I keep my body in balance? So I really want to see like Calvin Austin III in that slot position, Allen Robinson, right, because the action comes to you faster. The outside guys, they're going to have their fun, but that's more so screen plays, wide toss plays. It doesn't happen as often. They're usually downfield. They're usually running decoy routes, but the slot guys are going to get a lot more action in that. And that's where you see a lot more safety involvement. So how those guys play, it's going to be really fun. And that'll be on the side closest to the bleachers. They'll run it along that sideline area.
Fans love that one.
Of course.
Up close
and
their
personal,
area.
right there. You might even get some sweat on you if you're standing on the sidelines. Like, that's the fun one. So that drill will be closer. Backs on backers will be by the scoreboards. Offensive line, defensive line, pass rush will be on the far end by the baseball field, or what I call the pines over there, that side of the field. So everybody will get some action that's here today watching live to be able to see up close and personal one of the physical drills.
All right, what about Kenny Pickett? Knowing that 7 shots has been without pads, but you're ramping it up when the pads go on and just a lot of the different team drills that we're going to see today.
Well, you have to think a year later, a year under your belt, an actual offseason to your life does wonders. And Kenny is just a guy that looks like he's in command because he's kind of been there. He hasn't quite done that yet, but he's been there. So now that he's coming in QB1, the offense is now something that he feels comfortable with, is tailored to him in the offseason. So I think for him, it's about now I get to go to the next phase. Now when I do make that tight throw and it looks like it's an uncontested catch, now I get to see how does my receiver battle and am I putting the ball in the right place? because that's one of the things. You have to take care of the ball. And so with Kenny, what we've seen the first 4 days in practice, a lot of down the field passes, a lot of aggressive in the middle passes. So now with the pads on and now a little bit more live, let's see if those passes actually are working or if that was something that was just an illusion because we didn't have pads. But I love the confidence. I love what he is. And you forgot one drill, Missi. Another highly touted type of drill that gets overlooked and that is a great pastime that happens in the middle of the field. Quarterbacks diving on the football drill. That's the closest thing they'll get to contact is the ground.
Right.
But that ball, that dastardly ball, because it's oblong, you've seen a couple guys jump on it and think of it like a belly flop, like, I'm just going to secure it, and it comes squirting out. But that's the quarterback's contact drill. It's going to be, can you cover up a football that, quote-unquote, get either fumble the snap from the center or the ball's a little off or it gets batted and you got to get on top of it. They'll also do those drills because no detail too small from Coach Tomlin.
No, absolutely. What is something else that can happen today just in terms of maybe a guy having his stock go up a little bit more, or do you have to look at this as a full body of work this week because the pads are just going on today, day one?
Well, I think you get a first impression. And for a lot of guys, and when you think about this roster, 52 out of the 90 are brand new. Mm-hmm. So this is your first impression. All the other things, the pleasantries, that's like a Zoom call. Now I get to meet you in person, shake your hand, and say hello, how do you do? And I'm here to play football. This is that moment. So this is your first impression. Now, like you said, the culmination, can you do this repeatedly? But your first impression often sticks, and it also gets the eyeballs to look at you when we go to meetings later. You're in your meeting room as a unit. Guys learn a little bit more about you instead of just hearing about it hearsay-wise. And then for the scouts now, hey, who are we going to pay attention to a little bit more? Or if this guy doesn't get it day one, might have to open up that list and start looking at other options. So it is still a first impression that's very important today.
In terms of going from today, the first day, I don't know if it's a little bit of a shock to the system afterwards. What is the next day like knowing that you could potentially be back in pads?
Oh, it hurts. It sucks. The first day in pads, this is like the first day working out, right? The first time you do squats heavy, that next day you're like, man, you got to make a business decision if you want to sit down to use the bathroom. They're like, wait a second, my hamstrings are burning. But that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that. You're going to feel your shoulders are going to be sore. They're going to be bruised up. And this is the callousing process. This is the first step in the callousing process for the season. But, yeah, guys are going to be sore. Your butt is going to hurt because you're squatting and trying to lift guys out as offensive and defensive linemen. And as a receiver, the hamstrings are going to just be a little bit tight because you're going to strain a little bit more in your route because you're trying to either get separation or you're trying to go block a guy after that. So you're going to be sore. And I think the cold and hot tub is going to be in full business today. As we go to dinner, guys are going to creep in a little bit later because you got to start treating your body a lot differently when you have pads on versus the first couple of days of acclimation.
We heard from defensive coordinator Terrell earlier and just how the coaches get into it. What have your position coaches told you heading into the first day of pads of what they want to see from their unit?
Don't embarrass me. That's the first thing that comes out. Don't embarrass me out there because it's on you now. Before that, we can talk about it. Schematics, you don't know where to go.
Right.
You don't know what to do. You're slow off the ball. Okay, that's on me as a coach to get you ready and get you confident. But now, this is the how do you do it and can you do it phase, and it's all on you. You're going to have to go hit somebody. You're going to have to go block that guy, and you're going to have to keep that block. Defensive lineman, you're going to have to shed that block. Don't stay caught up. John Mitchell, the great Coach Mitchell, longtime defensive line coach here and assistant head coach up until last year. Coach Mitch, I didn't want to hear Coach Mitch saying anything about me because Coach Mitch said, how'd you get whipped by that dude? That dude shouldn't even be here. He's just a camp. I mean, you would hear all the negative stuff. And Coach Mitch, that was always a thing. He's like, do you want Mitch yelling at you? It's like, because he's going to be yelling at you by yelling through the other guy. and my coach, Russ Grimm, Larry Zerline, Sean Kugler, all of them like, hey, don't embarrass me. That's it.
All right, simple as that. Well, it is time to head down to the field for Max because they have wrapped up individuals, and we will be back with our wrap-up show following practice today to break it all down for you. Thanks so much for joining us here on Training Camp Live, presented by FedEx. We'll see you in a little bit.